Welcome back, guys. Jimmy Jules here again with another CREY prop tutorial. In today's episode, we're going to be covering how to make a shop. To do this, we'll be using 4 of the props. These will be the shop prop, the currency prop, the currency modifier prop, and the product prop. We'll be going through how each of these props works, and we'll set up a functional shop along the way. You'll need each of these props working together to make a functional shop. But first of all, we'll be going through the actual shop prop. If we open up the settings menu, we've got a couple of options such as the name for our shop, and we've also got the option to add a product. First of all, I'm just going to rename this shop Upgrades, and we're going to make a few upgrades for our character that they can purchase. At the moment, if we click the new products button, nothing happens because we don't actually have any products in our game yet. We'll go through adding one of these in just a moment. But before we do that, to purchase things within our shop, we're going to need some currency. So I've got the 2 currency props here, the currency and the currency modifier, and these work in a very similar way to a variable and a variable modifier. For the currency, we have a few options here. We can rename our currency to whatever we like. We'll rename ours stars. We have the default currency, which is what the player will start with when they come into the game. Then we have the minimum currency. Generally, this would be 0 unless you want them to be able to go into the negatives. We have the maximum currency, which is the maximum amount of currency you want your players to be able to collect. We then have the current output, which holds the amount of currency the player currently has, and we can access that from the output here. Beneath this, we have the saved option, which will toggle whether the currency is saved if the player leaves the game and then returns. Then, of course, we have the power button, which will enable or disable the functionality of the prop entirely. Next, we have our currency modifier settings. First of all, we'll need to choose which currency to modify. If we click on the currency drop-down box, it gives us a list of the currency props that we currently have in our game. You can see it's pre-populated with the stars currency which we created. We can then choose a function for this modifier, whether we want it to get the value of the currency. For the set option, this will allow us to set our currency to a specific value that we specify in the modification setting. So with these settings here, when we power the prop on, it's going to set our stars currency to 100. We also have the add option, and when the currency modifier is set to this, every time we power it on, it will add the number in the modification setting to our currency. So with this example here, with these settings, each time we power the prop on, it's going to add 100 to our stars currency. If we wanted to take away 100, we just change this to a negative number. And finally, we have the reset option. This resets the currency to whatever's in the default setting. It will be set to that each time this currency modifier is powered on when it's on the reset option. We'll of course be going through some examples with these. I've just got one more to explain, and that is the product prop. In the product settings, the first thing we have is the name for our product. This should be something descriptive so the player knows what they're going to purchase. For one of the examples, we'll create a jump height upgrade. I've just renamed our product to jump height upgrade, and beneath this we've got the icon that will be shown to the player in our shop. Beneath the icon we have the currency that will be used when this is purchased. We've currently only got one currency, so I'll choose the stars. And then we'll choose the price for this product. We'll just make this 100 stars. We also have the option to have limited stock for our product. And for a jump height upgrade, this is a good idea, because if they upgrade their jumps too much, they'll probably end up jumping a bit too high. For this prop, we again have the saved option, which will toggle whether or not this is saved between play sessions for the player. And we also have an output for when this product is purchased, which we can use to modify other things in our game, and we'll go through this very shortly. First of all though, now that we've created our product, let's jump back into the shop setting. You can see we're back in our upgrades shop now, and if we now press the new products button, we have a jump height option, which is the product we've just created. If we select this, it gives us a more centralized place to modify some of the settings on our products. This way, if we have multiple products within the shop, we don't have to go and open each of the products, we can just modify the settings directly here. We can change the name of the product, the currency it will use to be purchased, whether it's saved between play sessions, the price for the product, and the amount of stock that it has, as well as the icon. You can see, for example, if we change the icon to the lightning symbol and then jump back into the product, this has updated our product prop. So we're making progress. We now have a shop with a product in it. This product will cost us 100 currency, so we need to make sure that our player starts off with some currency. I'm going to change the default currency to 1000, and this is what our player is going to start with. I've also added in a number displayer, so that at the top of the screen we always have the display of our currency. Next, we need to figure out how we want our player to be able to activate our shop. How are they going to access the shop? I'll be taking you through a couple of ways we might be able to do this. The first will be a location-based activation, so for example, if the player is around this house, then the shop will open. So you might be able to have a little shop front that the player approaches and then the shop opens for them. And I'll also be taking you through how to do this with a button press, so the player is able to toggle the shop on and off anytime throughout the game. For the location-based activation, we'll use a sensor. I've left all the settings as default here. The only thing I've changed is the shape, and I've just changed this to a box, and I've modified the length and width just so that the sensors box covers the area where I want the shop to activate from. Then we'll open up our shop and our sensor, and all we're going to do here is plug the detected output into the power of the shop. That's all we're going to do, and now we're going to jump back into play mode, and we're going to head over to the house, and you'll see our upgrades shop appears for us to interact with. It displays each of our products that we'll have. We'll add some more shortly, but it also shows the icon, the product name, the price of the product, and the amount of stars you currently have. If we click on the product, it purchases and automatically deducts our currency without the use of a currency modifier. So the shop takes care of all the currency calculations and does a lot of the hard work for us. Now, of course, at the moment, this is just a dummy product. This isn't actually doing anything to our jump height. We'll be going through making this work and a few other examples just after I show you how to activate the shop with a button input. So to detect a button press, we're of course going to need an input trigger. I've set this input trigger to a custom key, which is going to be left control. To toggle the shop on and off, we're going to use the switch 2.0 prop. We're just going to wire our key pressed output directly into the input of the switch, and each time we press the left control button, it's going to toggle our switch to turn on or off. We're then going to plug this output directly into our shop. Now if we jump into play mode, press the left control key, it pops up our upgrades shop. If we press it again, it goes away. So those are two great ways to have your player activate the shop itself. You can activate the shop with any prop, you just need to send a signal to the input port of the power. Alrighty, so I've gone through and added a few more products to our shop, as you can see here. I've done this with the same process we used to set up the initial jump height increase, and I'll be going through how to make each of these upgrades functional. First of all, we'll be going through the jump height upgrade. You can see we have our jump height product here, and on the right under our player manager settings, we have a jump height that can be modified with a signal. We'll need a way to store the value of our current jump height, and also a way to change that value. For this, we'll be using a variable for the number storage, and a variable modifier for the number modification. I've got a variable here, and I've named this jump height. I've set the default as 2, because by default, our jump height is 2, and if we set this to 0, our player won't be able to jump at all. So we're going to plug our jump height variable directly into the jump height input on the player manager. This is going to send the value of our jump height variable into this player manager setting. To change our jump height variable, we'll be using a variable modifier. I've set this variable modifier to add 1 to the jump height every time it's activated. We're going to activate this modifier with the purchased output from our product. This output will send a signal each time the player purchases a jump height upgrade, and this will turn on our variable modifier. I've added a number displayer on the very left just underneath our lives, and this is displaying our jump height. You can see at the moment if I try to jump up this ledge, I'm unable to. So if we jump into the shop with our left control shortcut, we can purchase a jump height increase. So if I click on this, you'll see up the top left, our jump height has increased to 3. I'll press left control again to toggle the shop back off, and I'm now able to jump up on this ledge. So you can have areas locked away to players until they're able to purchase an upgrade to reach them. We can purchase some additional jump height increases and upgrade it to 5, and we can jump even higher. You could use this exact same setup to modify any of the settings on the player manager, so you can make a heap of character upgrades for your players. Next up, we've got a sword upgrade, where you can purchase a sword for your character to use. We've got our sword product here, and in our weapon manager, I've just selected the medieval sword. I've left everything else except for the weapon name as default. Once we have our weapon manager set up, we're able to select it in the weapon spawner. So I've selected our sword from the weapon spawner, and we'll go through how to set this up so that your player is able to use the sword once they've purchased it. So we've got our product here, and we've got our other 4 props that we'll be using to equip our weapon once we've purchased it. Initially, once we've purchased the sword, we want the player to immediately equip it. We've got our weapon spawner down here, and we're able to equip this by sending a signal to the equip port. So we're going to grab this purchased signal, and we're going to plug this into an OR gate, and we're going to plug the true output of this OR gate into the equip input of the weapon spawner. The reason we've plugged this through an OR gate is because we'll also be using another condition to let your player equip the weapon, and that will be a button press. This will be so we can have multiple weapons and have our player choose between them. Because we then want our player to be able to equip the weapon after they've purchased it, using a button press, we're also going to turn on an input trigger, and this will allow them to press a button to activate the weapon. Now we're going to plug our purchased output from our product, so whenever the player purchases the product, and we're going to plug that into the increase of our counter here. This is just going to increase our current count to 1, and because our target value is 1, it's just going to turn this pulse into a permanent signal. We'll then grab the target count reached output and plug that into the power of the input trigger. What this is doing is once the player has purchased the sword, it will permanently activate our input trigger, and we'll be able to use this key pressed output to activate the weapon. So we'll grab this key pressed, and we'll plug that into the other port of our OR gate. And that's all we need for this setup. So just a quick overview, when the player purchases the product, it's going to immediately equip the weapon, and it's also going to permanently enable an input trigger so the player can manually equip the weapon with a button press. So if we jump into our shop, you can see we have our sword product here, and if I click on this, we're going to immediately equip the sword. Because we only have one weapon at the moment, we can't switch between them, but I'll take you through adding a pistol in very shortly. Now I'll take you through how to make an unlockable character through the shop. For example, if we purchase this, you can see it will change the character that we're currently playing as, and we can purchase it again, and it'll change it again. This one's a very simple setup. We've got our product as usual, and it's called new character. And we're just using a counter to control the index of our character changer. You can see we have 3 characters set up in the character changer: the default, our first upgrade, and our second upgrade. And we're just increasing the counter every time they purchase the upgrade. So the player purchases the product, it increases the counter's count, so this will turn to a 1, and this will then change our index of our character changer to index 1 and switch our character to the next one down. A very simple setup, but a cool little upgrade for your players to be able to use. Finally, I'll be taking you through how to create an upgrade with a sub-upgrade included. So for this example, we've got a pistol, and when we purchase the pistol, it gives us an additional shop option for pistol damage, because we don't want the player to be able to purchase the pistol damage before they've purchased the pistol. Now this setup might look familiar because this is exactly the same as the sword setup that we had earlier. The only difference is, for our weapon manager, I've changed the name and the weapon. You can see we've now got a pistol, and I've chosen the pistol from the weapon manager's options. We've got this input trigger set to be our number 2 key, and our sword is set to number 1. So now that we have both of our weapons purchased, I can show you the weapon switching. If I press 1 or 2 now, absolutely nothing happens because the input triggers are disabled until we've purchased the weapons. I can purchase the sword, and then the pistol, and then now that I have both of those weapons purchased, I can press number 1 to switch back to the sword, and number 2 to switch to the pistol. But how have we made this pistol damage upgrade show up after we've purchased the pistol? We've added 4 more props on top of our weapon purchase system. These props are just for our pistol purchasing, and then we've added another product under this. But we want this product to be disabled until the player purchases the pistol itself. To disable this product, we're going to be using a counter. Initially, the counter is going to be 0, so it's going to disable the product, and we'll plug this directly into the power. We'll then need a way to enable the product by increasing the counter, and we'll use the purchased output from the product to increase the counter. So what this is doing is once we've purchased the pistol, it's going to activate the pistol damage upgrade. And that's all we need to do. So now when we select the pistol, it's going to give us the extra option to purchase an additional damage increase for the pistol. Then in basically the same way that we upgraded the jump height, we're going to be using a variable to control the pistol's damage. We've set the variable default to 10 because the default damage of the weapon is 10 in this case. And we're going to plug that current output directly into the damage input. Then, just like we did before, we're going to plug the purchased output directly into the variable modifier's power, and that's going to increase our pistol damage variable by 10 each time we purchase the product. So with this setup here, it's going to increase our pistol damage from 10 to 20 because it's adding 10 with this modifier. I hope some of these examples have shown you the potential of the shop and what you can include in it. You can upgrade or change anything you can send a signal to, really, so what this means is you can upgrade any of the numbers in any of these props with the shop. Whether that be one of the examples that we've shown today, or something like upgrading the brightness of a light, increasing the speed of a mover. I hope these examples have helped you guys. If you've got any questions at all, definitely leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.